Hey guys, this is Mario again, continuing my review of the X-Men film series. And today I'm reviewing the second entry in the series, and out of all 5 films, it is probably my favorite of the bunch. X-Men 2, X-Men United. Like the first film, it is directed by Bryan Singer, and this, to date, is the last of the X-Men movies that he directed, because he was supposed to direct this movie, but then he dropped out to go film another superhero movie, which in retrospect probably shouldn't have, and that of course was Superman Returns. I haven't seen it, but just from the stuff I've seen of it, that's probably what I'm going to want to do. I'm probably going to want to do this during it. Seppuku. You know, just like that one Japanese guy in Airplane when the main character is telling him the story. A little reference there now. Anyway, the plot is it takes place, I'm going to guess, not that long after the first film. Maybe like a month at most. Because the characters haven't changed that much, and Wolverine is getting back from visiting the place the professor told him to go at the end of the first film. Well, the Mutant Registration Act is gone, but you can tell that some senators and stuff don't want it to be there. Especially after what happens at the beginning where Nightcrawler attempts to assassinate the president. And man, Nightcrawler in that scene, he fucks everyone up. Teleporting kick, teleporting punch and stuff. He's kicking ass and taking names. And of course, Nightcrawler in this movie is played by Cumming, who the only movies that he's been in that I've seen was the movie from '94, Black Beauty, which I haven't seen in years, but I remember liking it as a kid. And of course, the Spy Kids series where he plays Floop. So I have to say, out of the roles I've seen him in, this is my favorite one. And it's just funny that after he only manages to say his full thing about his name and stuff once. My name is. I gotta scroll down and see what his character's real name is. My name is Kurt Wagner. But in the Circus of Munich, I was known as the Amazing Nightcrawler. He only finishes that once. Every other time, he's interrupted. Which, while I'm on the subject of Nightcrawler, a funny thing about this movie, him and Mystique have one conversation in the movie. In the comics, they're mother-son. They don't hint at that, but I think that they do kind of hint that that is the same in this in the movie continuity as well when they made X-Men First Class, since Nightcrawler's father is Azel's in it. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, because of the attack on the president, you know, he's going to be kind of unsure of what to do. He's going to say a mutant's dangerous, because he now knows that certain mutants can be dangerous if given the incentive to do something, you know, just like Magneto did in the first film as well. And Magneto's still in his prison for a while anyway. The president is approached by Colonel William Stryker, in this movie played by Brian Cox, who, the only role I know him from, even though I haven't seen the movie, is Hannibal Lecter in Manhunter. And I have to say, Brian Cox plays Stryker better than the guy in Origins, although I'll say the guy in Origins does a good job, but he's no Brian Cox. And after seeing Origin, you can actually, that smile he gives Wolverine later in the movie when they first meet actually has some more merit. You're like, don't you remember me? No, I don't remember you, but aren't you the guy that shot me in the fucking head? Yeah, but anyway, Stryker gets permission to invade the mansion because he got this satellite photo of the plane taken out in the first movie, so he now has the evidence that they can invade. Of course, he's told to only capture, not kill. He invades after Wolverine gets back. Bad move. And Wolverine, this is where we actually start to see how badass Wolverine is, because in the first movie he only has 2 fights, and they're mostly with Sabretooth. In this movie he taking out security guards with his claws and stuff. So you get to see how badass Wolverine can be. Of course, he only manages to escape the mansion after meeting Stryker with a handful of X-Men. Those X-Men include Pyro. It includes Iceman and, of course, Rogue, who, in this movie, Rogue and Iceman are now dating. And, of course, they escape. In the meanwhile, Cyclops and Professor X have gone to visit Magneto, and they've discovered that he told Stryker everything, and that's one of the reason he knows about the mansion. And they are captured. And not that long after that, Mystique breaks Magneto out, and I'll just say they're not really villains in this movie, except maybe for a little bit at the end. I'd have to put Magneto and Mystique more as anti-heroes than they are as villains, because they are helping the main characters, although be it for their own agenda, but they're not doing anything villainous until the ending of the movie. Stryker's the main villain, which Stryker's son plays a pivotal role in this because he has psychic powers just like Gene and the Professor. It's just he likes to create illusions, create things, and it said he tormented his parents until Stryker had him lobotomized, which if he was doing it to torment them, I can see why he lobotomized them. Not that I agree with it, but I can see probably why he would do it. And unlike in Origins, at one point, for a split second, Stryker does seem sympathetic. Then, of course, he blows it with something he does. In this movie, he's not sympathetic at all. He is just a maniacal son of a bitch. Because think of it. Senator Kelly wanted to make sure that every mutant was exposed, and of course, if he had the power to, he said he would lock him up. He wouldn't kill him. Stryker wants to kill all of them because he knows about Cerebro, and he wants to use Cerebro in connection with Professor X to kill all of them, because the Professor can do that. He's powerful enough that when using Cerebro, if he concentrates hard enough, he can kill him. He mentions that when he's trying to fight Nightcrawler. So that's just a scary thought, the Professor using Cerebro to kill people. And, of course, funny thing is that Stryker has a mutant assistant, Lady Deathstrike, which the actress that plays her, she barely has any lines, but for her character, she doesn't really need them, and she gets her point across. And apparently, she has the same powers as Wolverine, healing and claws, and during their fight, you can tell it's going to be a hard fight, because Sabretooth was easy compared to Lady Deathstrike, I guess you could say, because their fight went back and the fight with Deathstrike kind of goes back and forth a little bit, but at a couple points she does dominate the fight until the ending of it, which I saw how the fight ended coming, but it's still a good feeling. It's feeling to see it happen. And of course, there's one line. It's a cliche line, but when you see it happen, this is one line you're probably thinking, "Ooh, that's gotta hurt." Those of you who've seen the movie know what I'm talking about. The acting in the movie from the characters that return is still good as always. Ian McKellen, Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, Halle Berry, James Marsden. They all do good jobs. And of course, all the things that all the character development is continued, like how we saw the character development in the first movie. It continues along that path. The relationship, the love triangle between Cyclops, Jean, and Wolverine is still building. You can still see the friendship between the Professor and Magneto a little bit. Rogue still looks up to Wolverine as a father figure, and of course you see her relationship with Iceman grow a little bit, and you also see a little rivalry between Iceman and Pyro beginning to build. And it even shows more Mystique's devotion to Magneto, because she breaks him out by drugging a guard and putting iron in his blood, which when Magneto discovers this, it's a very cool scene. I'm not going to say what happens and stuff, but it's a very cool scene. And how they did, sorry if there's too much background noise, the kids next door. How they portrayed Nightcrawler's character in the movie is pretty good. Granted, he's not furry, but it's kind of hard to do fur, I guess, when they made this movie. They felt that skin would be easier, and it doesn't bug me, but it still looks, the makeup looks pretty good on him. And like how his character is devoutly Catholic, because I understand that's how he is in the comics, but I don't remember him being like that in either cartoon. So, but getting that across is really good. Like his little conversation with Storm. Tattoos, what are they for? One for each sin. That alone just tells you, since he has a lot of tattoos, that he really is devoutly Catholic if he puts on a tattoo for each sin. Also the fact that he prays every time he does something. The effects, good as the first movie, if not a little bit better. What else to talk about? Now, as I was saying, the character development is still there. Now, the movie is paced a little bit better than the first movie, because I know that the pacing of the first movie might turn people off who aren't really familiar with the characters. But then again, for me, that pace, I never had a problem with it, because it was the first X-Men related thing I found besides that one comic I had, and of course the show. I knew loosely about the characters, but I hadn't watched the cartoon in years when I first saw this movie. So watching it, it was reintroducing me to the characters, so I didn't really have a problem with the pacing, but some people might. This movie, since it has the advantage of most people who are watching it are being already seen the first movie or being already familiar with the characters, so it just continues the tread that it had in the first movie, continuing with the characterization but moving at a much quicker pace. For one, like I mentioned, it has more action. Like, it starts with that action scene with Nightcrawler. It has the scene where they invade the house. It has a small action scene in Boston with the police. It has an action scene inside the whatever the name of the plane is, and then of course there's a lot of action in the climax. So that's like 5 specific parts. And of course, with how the movie ends, you can tell there's going to be emotional and emotional stuff at the beginning of the next movie. And also, there is a credit. I don't remember if it's an after credits or right before the credits scene that hints at what the next movie is going to be about. Which I already knew this was happening when I saw the movie, but because I remember I only saw this movie for the first time last year, so it was after this movie came out, and I already knew who the villains in this movie were. So I'm like, okay, let's see how they hint at it. I'm like, oh, that's actually a pretty good hint. And of course, for when you watch this movie for the first time, how the movie ends, it will kind of get to you, because whatever happens to the character. And the interaction between Stryker and Wolverine, I do like it, because it doesn't give a lot away about their past, but gives enough away for you to actually hate what Stryker did to him. And of course, Stryker says one line to Wolverine that I really do like. That kind of does tell him a little bit about his past without telling him about his past. You were an animal then, you're an animal now. I just gave you claws. Now, of course, with what they did in Origin, you can take an attack. That's kind of ignoring a line, but I'll get to that when I get to Wolverine. But and also, when they show the room with the adamantium thing, I like how it looks like it's been there for years and stuff. Like, kind of looks like rust or dirt on it and stuff. It's designed very well. And just like it's designed very well, just like the flashbacks that Wolverine had in his dreams were. But again, that's another thing I'm going to get to when I get to the Wolverine video. What's my rating for this movie? I give it a 5 out of 5, like the first movie, because I can't really think of anything wrong with the movie. It's still a very good X-Men movie, and like I mentioned earlier, it's sad that Bryan Singer did not direct the next one. It makes me wonder, not that this is a bad movie, it just makes me wonder what Bryan's vision of it would have been if he had directed the script, or there would have been changes to the script or something. I don't know. Anyway, that concludes this review.